All right. Welcome back, everyone. I am pumped for this deep dive. You sent in this awesome podcast episode all about making 2025 like the best year ever. And I thought it'd be cool to, kind of go through it together and see what we can learn.
Oh, this is going to be good. I love these kinds of episodes. There's always so much great advice out there about personal growth. I'm really curious to hear what stood out to you the most.
Well, they start off by talking about reflecting on 2024. And honestly, I think that's such a smart move.
Yeah,
It's easy to just get swept up in all the new year excitement. But taking a minute to really look back can be so valuable.
totally agree. It's like, you know how they say those who can't remember the past are doomed to repeat it? Even if, like, things weren't perfect last year, there are always lessons to be learned, right?
100%. The episode really emphasizes that even those bad experiences,
Mm-hmm.
they can be like amazing learning opportunities. And it made me think about my own 2024. Like, yeah, there were some awesome high points, but there were also times when I felt like I was just like spinning my wheels. Yeah.
It sounds like you've already got that self-awareness going, which is awesome. And that's where the episode suggestion of journaling comes in, because it's not just about, like, venting, right? It's about actually seeing those patterns in your thoughts and behavior.
That's so interesting. I've tried journaling before, but I never thought about it like that, as a way to spot patterns. How do you actually do that effectively?
Okay, so here's a thought. Think about something that was like a recurring challenge for you in 2024. Maybe it was procrastination or like feeling super overwhelmed. When did it usually happen? What were you thinking and feeling right before it happened? And then what did you actually do? Like, what actions did you take? By analyzing those moments, you might start to see some patterns that could help you make different choices this year.
That's such a good tip. I'm definitely going to try that. Okay, so we've looked back. Now let's look ahead. The episode spends a lot of time talking about setting goals, specifically SMART goals, which I've always found to be super helpful.
Oh, yeah. SMART goals are a classic for a reason. They make your goals so much more concrete, so much more actionable. But let's go a little deeper than just, defining the acronym. How can we actually apply this?
Yeah, exactly. So they give this example about saving money. Instead of just saying like, oh, I want to save more money, a SMART goal would be something like, I'm going to save $500 per month by cutting back on takeout and cooking at home more. It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Boom.
Yes, nailed it. And it doesn't have to be just about finances, right? Think about any area in your life where you want to see improvement in 2025. So maybe your goal is to learn a new language. Instead of saying, I'm going to learn Spanish, you make it SMART. I'll study Spanish for 30 minutes each day using Duolingo and aim to have a basic conversation by June. See the difference.
Totally. It makes it feel so much more tangible, so much more achievable, like I can actually do this.
Exactly. And if you're dealing with like a really big goal, remember what they said about breaking it down into smaller steps? They use the example of training for a marathon. So instead of focusing on those like daunting 26.2 miles, you start with a 5K, then a 10K, and build up gradually.
Oh, that's such a good point. I tend to get so overwhelmed by big goals, but if you break them down, it makes it feel so much less intimidating. Okay, so we've talked about reflecting on the past, setting SMART goals. What's next on the list for making 2025 amazing?
Well, the episode makes this great point that we can't exactly crush our goals if we're running on empty, right? So naturally, the next focus is all about prioritizing our well-being.
I love that. And I love how they emphasize that health isn't just about like hitting the gym. It's about a much more holistic approach.
Absolutely. It's about nourishing your mind, your body, and your spirit. The episode mentions the physical health basics like, exercise, balanced meals, and sleep, which are all obviously super important.
Of course, yeah. But they also go a little deeper and talk about mental and emotional well-being, which I think is something that often gets overlooked. They even mention things like yoga, mindfulness, and meditation for mental health, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, those are fantastic starting points. But it's really about finding what works for you, right? The episode mentions yoga, but what if yoga is just, like, not your thing? What are some other ways you can achieve those same benefits? Maybe it's nature walks, listening to calming music, or spending time with loved ones. It's about exploring and figuring out what helps you feel grounded.
Such a good point. And speaking of emotional well-being, the episode also talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with supportive people.
Yes, it's all about cultivating those relationships that lift you up and encourage you to be your best self. And on the flip side, it's about recognizing those relationships that might be draining your energy and setting healthy boundaries.
That is so important. Sometimes we get so caught up in achieving these external goals that we forget to take care of our inner world.
It's all connected, and you feel good physically, mentally, emotionally. You just have so much more energy and resilience to go after your goals and handle life's curveballs.
I couldn't agree more. This has already been such an insightful conversation, and I'm really curious to see what other gems this episode has in store for us. What's next on our deep dive agenda?
Well, after well-being, they move on to something I always get super excited about, lifelong learning.
Yes. Love this. It's so easy to fall into like a routine
Mhm.
and just kind of stop seeking out new knowledge and skills, you know. But the episode really makes a point of making 2025 the year to like expand our horizons.
And they don't limit it to just formal settings, which is so
Yeah.
important. They talk about being open to learning from like everyday experiences, whether it's trying a new recipe, having a deep conversation with someone, or even just being curious and observant about the world around you.
Totally. It's all about that beginner's mind thing, right? Like
Yeah.
being open to new possibilities no matter how old you are or what you already know.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know what goes hand in hand with trying new things? Seeking feedback, which can be so powerful for growth, I think.
Oh, I know feedback can be tough to hear sometimes, but I totally agree. It's so valuable. It helps you see those blind spots you might have and identify areas where you can like level up.
It's like having an extra pair of eyes, helping you see things from a different angle. Even if the feedback isn't like exactly what you wanted to hear, it can still be so helpful if you're open to it,
Yeah,
if you're willing to learn.
for sure. Okay, so speaking of learning, I'm curious. What's one skill or area of knowledge that you've been curious about lately? It could be anything. Learning a new language, mastering sourdough bread baking, whatever.
Ooh, good question. I've always been fascinated by astronomy, like the vastness of the universe, our place in it. It's just mind-blowing. I think maybe 2025 is the year I finally dive into that.
That is so cool. I can already picture you out there stargazing and like totally geeking out over constellations.
Mm.
And, that reminds me of some of the examples they give in the episode. They talk about like signing up for a coding boot camp, setting a reading goal.
Those are great examples of actively pursuing learning. But even if you don't have the time or resources for something structured, there are so many ways to learn, like podcasts, documentaries, online courses, even just conversations with people who know a lot about the stuff you're interested in.
So true. Learning doesn't have to be this big formal thing. You can just weave it into your everyday life.
And remember, it's not about being perfect or becoming an expert right away. It's about enjoying the process, the journey,
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to make mistakes along the way.
Love that perspective. Okay, so we've covered reflecting on the past, smart goals, prioritizing well-being, embracing lifelong learning. What else does this episode highlight for making 2025 the best year ever?
Well, they wrap it up by talking about gratitude and positivity, which I think is a perfect note to end on.
Absolutely. Gratitude is something I've been trying to focus on more myself, and it's amazing how powerful it can be. What I found so interesting is the episode doesn't just say be grateful, it actually gives you a specific practice.
Oh, right. They suggest writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning. Sounds so simple, but I bet it really shifts your mindset.
I've tried it, and it's crazy how it just like changes your focus, even on those tough days. Even on those tough days when you're stressed or feeling overwhelmed. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you start to appreciate the things that are going right.
It's like you're training your brain to look for the positive, which can then impact everything else in your life.
Totally. And it's not about like ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing to focus on the good, even when there are challenges.
Exactly. And they even challenge you to take it a step further and like actively reframe challenges, focus on solutions.
Yeah, like they give that example of when things go wrong. Instead of just dwelling on the negative, try to find the opportunity for growth or learning in that situation. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about approaching them with a positive, solution-oriented mindset.
That's so true. I remember when I made this like huge mistake at work a few years ago, and I was so embarrassed and upset with myself. But then I realized instead of just beating myself up about it, I could use it as a learning experience. So I figured out what went wrong, what I could have done differently, and I used that to get better.
That's such a good example of turning a negative into a positive.
Mm.
And it really highlights that. Like, yeah, challenges are going to happen, but it's how you choose to respond to them that really makes the
It's
difference.
about taking control of your story, choosing to see the good, even when it's tough.
I love that. So, wow, we have covered so much in this deep dive. Reflecting on the past, smart goals, prioritizing well-being, embracing lifelong learning, cultivating gratitude. These are some serious tools for making 2025 our best year yet.
Totally agree. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. something that wasn't specifically mentioned in the source, but I think it builds on everything we've talked about.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued. What's his final thought?
Well, think about it. You've got this whole toolkit now for crushing it in 2025. You've reflected, set goals, you're prioritizing your health, embracing learning, even tapped into that gratitude power. But the real question is, what's one small step you can take, today, to actually put all this into action?
I love that. It's not about waiting for the perfect time or making some big dramatic change, right? It's about just taking that first tiny step.
Exactly. It could be something as simple as, I don't know, finally scheduling that doctor's appointment you've been putting off, or actually looking into that online course that caught your eye, or even just writing a thank you note to someone who made you smile. Little things like that.
Those are such good examples. The key is to just do something, even if it seems small.
Because momentum builds momentum, right?
Yeah.
That one small step could lead to something way bigger down the line.
Yeah. This has been incredible. I seriously feel so energized and ready to tackle 2025, with a plan and a purpose.
And remember, you're not alone in this. We're all in this together. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep making this year your best one yet.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another awesome exploration of, well, whatever you send our way.